Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome everybody to the Talent Market 30 for July 2025. Welcome in today's session. As you might have joined before, this is the session in which we try to show you a lot of interesting stuff in a short amount of time. We're going to focus on what is hot and happening at the labor market and what does it mean for you. I'll take you through the agenda, but before I do that, I always welcome questions. There are always a little bit of time at the end to answer some questions. Please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them at the end of this session. Let's go to the agenda. So as usual, we always start with a little bit of a feeling on what's happening in the global labor markets. How tight is that at the moment and how is that looking going forward? Then we're going to go into a couple of topics. We have 4 topics for you today. Of course, there's no escaping. There will be AI topics today as well. We're going to go into the AI talent race. A lot has happened in that area when you think of what Meta has been doing over the last few weeks. Then we're moving on to what BCG has published around AI implementation. I think there are interesting takeaways for any HR leader in that area. Gallup has published a new research on employee engagement, and the last topic for the day will be the drop in demand for junior talent, something to be aware of. And last but not least, we end with some takeaways and of course the Q&A. So please feel free to drop those questions in the chat. Let's move on to the labor market and how we're doing at the moment. So a couple of areas, things are going well. Some of the areas, things are not going so well. If we zoom in on the US, we see that on the outside, the labor market looks pretty stable, still creating quite a few jobs. But if you zoom into those jobs, you see that there's a lot of those jobs being created in the government and especially local government. And most of the job growth over the last month was actually coming from the public sector. So underneath those numbers, it doesn't look as great anymore as it did before. The private sector creating a lot less jobs, and that's definitely something to keep an eye out on. If we look at some other countries, in the UK here, but also Germany, you see that the labor market is still softening in those areas. The unemployment in Germany is up to 6.3%, down from 5.5 a little bit more than a year ago. So that all of that is slowly trending up and is getting into numbers where that has an effect on the economy again. Same for the UK, where you see some real softening in the labor market, wage growth not as strong as it was before. So definitely some softening, but somewhat surprisingly, maybe there are still labor markets that are performing really well. The Netherlands being one of them, where demand came in very strong over the last month, but also wages remain the wage growth remains relatively high. But also other countries like Japan, where we see quite a resilient labor market at the moment. So all in all, a little bit of a mixed bag, some softening, but still some countries that are performing really well on a global level. Then we're going to move on to maybe the juiciest topic that I have for you today, and that is the AI talent race. And that was heated up, especially with a couple of very interesting articles on Meta. So Meta has set up a super intelligence lab. The idea is that they want to win the race to AGI, artificial general intelligence, and be sure that they play a major role in that. And they've invested a lot of money in this area. Just to give you a little bit of a feeling, they're investing around 70 billion they're investing 17 billion in the hardware to actually create that AI. But at the same time, they're also investing in talent, of course. And those numbers obviously don't go to 70 billion, but there is big money being offered to AI talent. And specifically, they have been poaching 12 new recruits that they have poached from OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, but also other AI companies such as Anthropic and Google, where they poached away talent and they offered $100 million sign-on bonus. So significant money being offered to talent to join them. Um, and of course, not everybody is doing this, but it is interesting what kind of reactions you get out of a significant investment in that. So, for example, the OpenAI responded by saying, well, Meta hasn't been able to poach our real top talent, so that's a little bit of a low blow to Meta. But also, what I found very interesting is to say that they said, well, our missionaries will win over the mercenaries, and almost making it a religious battle between these companies. Um, when they interviewed some of these people that have left, for example, OpenAI to Meta, there was another area that I thought was very interesting, and that is probably applicable a little bit for a little bit wider audience, is that they said that the real reason why they moved was not only the money, but also the access to top-notch technology, the investment going in that, access to the best chips that they have available, the compute that they have available. And that reminded me that for especially tech talent, and the technology can be a real differentiator. It's the same for data scientists. If you give them access to the best data, they will be more willing to come to your company, and that also in this area really showed that that can be a real differentiator. Maybe to draw a little bit wider, of course, I expect nobody on this call maybe to offer 100 million for a single recruit, but in general, we see that the AI talent battle is still very much ongoing, also at the wider market. Right now, in June 2025, we see that the demand for AI talent is at an all-time high. To give you a little bit of a feeling on what that looks like, even 2024 and 2023, we already saw an increase in demand. But since January 2024, the demand for AI talent has gone up with another almost 70%. So serious increases for AI talent. And I think what is very important takeaway from that is that as an HR leader or a talent leader, it's going to be very hard to land that type of crucial talent for your company. And you need to start thinking about what is your AI talent strategy? Are you going to upskill internally? How do you make sure that you're attractive, not only from a compensation aspect, but also from what kind of technology will they have available? And that is, of course, not only for the biggest hires, but also for any AI talent that you're trying to bring on board. But yes, of course, hiring AI talent is only half the battle. Once you have him, you need to also work on the adoption of AI in your organization. And with regard to that, I found a very interesting research done by BCG where they surveyed 10,000 people globally and asked them about their use of AI and the implementation in their organizations. And what they found, what was very interesting, is that they see that 78% of managers actually say that they use AI several times a week, where only 51% of the people in the front line use it every week. And there's a more and more a gap where managers and leaders in the company are using it, whereas people in frontline jobs are using it actually not as much more than they did in the previous years. So there seems to be a widening gap in adoption in that area. Um, Other areas that I thought was very interesting is that 54% of their people said that they would use AI tools even if it's not allowed by their company. And we see quite a few companies implementing restrictions, but you see that talent will use it. Most of the talent will use it. And I think this is typically an area where as HR, you want to be a voice in that room to say, hey, people are going to use it anyway. So let's make sure that they get access in a safe way possible, but let's not restrict it all the way because we know that at least half of the people will use it in any way and shape or form. And the other finding that they had, which is probably not a surprise, but I think it's often forgotten, is that when you focus your AI implementations on people, the results are much better. It leads to better results, higher quality, higher adoption rates, and the result that you get from implementing AI are in general just much higher. And of course, that's not of a surprise, but you see every company struggling in this area and focusing on the tech. And in a following session, we will also go into what it actually means for not only hiring AI tech talent, but also people that are able to help you with that implementation and how that job market looks like. So that we'll do that in a future session. A last point on this from this report that I thought was very interesting is that the AI agent usage among people is just still very low. Only 30% are using them regularly, and of course, this is not a little bit of a this is not a surprise. I think every company is full on in the adoption of AI, but what we see is that the actual proliferation of those tools is very low, and especially when it comes to agents, it is very low, and that's something, of course, to be aware of. Now, in the last few weeks, we as a company we had a conversation around it, but we also had a guest, Terence Maury, who wrote the Upside of Disruption, and I think he framed this in a nice way as well, where he said you can create warm AI or cold AI, and cold AI was talking about, okay, how can you do things more efficient and just automate everything, where it's also about warm AI and creating a new use. And also BCG mentioned that a lot of companies have focused on that first part, making things what they do right now more efficient, but it's not only about making things more efficient, but it's also about how do you reshape your workflows and maybe invent completely new workflows. And when they surveyed the 10,000 people on that, they saw that the majority of the companies are currently focusing on becoming more efficient and not necessarily at reinventing that workflow or completely reshaping that workflow. And I think as an AI leader or as a HR leader, it's important to keep that in mind and have the conversations with the business to say, hey, it's not just about efficiency, but it's also about creating new ways of working. Um, Now, when that doesn't happen very well, of course, that has an impact on morale, and that's what Gallup has researched as well on how we're doing in terms of engagement of employees globally. And what their latest survey results tell us is that employee engagement fell to only 21%. So that's relatively low. As you can see here on the graphs on the left, there has been an uptrend for quite a few years, but you see that it's stalling and slowly declining in the last few years. And this is especially concerning in a couple of groups. So as an individual contributor, the engagement remained the same, but they see that the engagement for at manager level is dropping, and especially for female and younger managers, this engagement was dropping even further. To give you the numbers, female managers, their engagement dropped from 30 to 23%. So that is also a relatively big decline for female managers. Also, they asked about if people were thriving in their life and in their work, and also there we've seen it 2 years in a row a decline in how people are thriving. And the point that Gallup makes, which I think is very interesting for this audience, is that they think there is about a 9% in GDP drop because companies are not making the most out of engagement. If all companies would be performing at the highest levels of engagement, what you can see here is around 70%, and then the growth of the global GDP will be 9% higher, or translating to a bigger economy of almost 10 trillion US dollars. What they also found is that the most rudimentary training for managers had a significant improvement in the engagement score. So when managers received the training, the rudimentary training, their engagement scores went up from 20 to 28%, leading to actually not only improved engagement, but also better performing companies. And I think that's the main takeaway from this research, is that uh, managers are the most important people. People leave managers, they don't necessarily leave the job. We've seen that time and time and again in a lot of research as well, that people leave their managers, and there's something that you can do about that. And if you train those managers, even small amount of training will actually help to increase the engagement scores in your company. So for me, this is a clear call to action to make sure your company is thinking about how do we improve the overall manager capabilities, because this has a big effect on employee engagement, and in the end, a big effect on how you perform as a company. Um, Not the only thing that we see as a systemic issue right now. Another area that we see systemic challenges is what the divergence in how we see demand evolving. On the left, you see demand for senior talent, or broken out by different brackets. And you see that actually year on year, an increase of about 4% uh, in demand for talent with more than 10 years experience, and almost the same for talent with 6 to 9 years experience. But if you actually look at the how the demand is trending for junior talent, so 0 to 2 years experience, you see a drop of 23%. So that's a 27% drop in 1 year, and that is becoming a very significant issue. Of course, there are multiple things underlying under that. It can be the general economy and the softening demand. I expect there's also a role to play for AI. One stat that I think is interesting there is that 1 in 3 managers says that they prefer to get a new AI tool over a Gen Z talent. So I found a very shocking stat. Um, I also think that the long-term implications of this, if we don't address these issues, it could become, of course, a serious issue. Unemployment of Gen Z has gone up with 30% compared to overall unemployment being up with 18%. So there are implications for this, but there are also future talent issues. If we don't train new graduates, then we miss out on the opportunity for future talent. And there's a call to action here that as a company, you can think about how do you introduce new talent? How do you make sure that they grow inside of your company, because that becomes a real differentiator. And actually that labor market is less tight now. So this is the moment to maybe to strike and find junior talent with a lot of potential that you want to make part of your company for a longer period of time. So those were the 4 topics for today. A couple of takeaways that I think are interesting to discuss for you in your own organization, specifically around AI talent strategy. Do you have that already in place? Is this something that you're actively discussing? How do you make sure that you're an attractive employer for that talent in a very competitive market? Where we all know that this is very crucial talent to bring into your organization to help you transform in the new world. Also, how do you actually make sure that AI is not something that only leaders and managers use, but actually have a positive impact on everybody on your workfloor? So that's, I think, something that needs to be addressed, because the success of all your AI implementations will sit with how well the average person in your company actually adopts them. And then what are you doing to help managers lead through all that change and not just survive that employee engagement? How can you make sure that that goes up? Well, like I hope you feel today, it's very important to train those managers and allow them to become better managers and increase the engagement. It has a big impact on the overall performance of your for your company. And last but not least, the early careers. I am genuinely worried about this trend. I don't think it's good for society. And I think it's a missed opportunity for most companies to think about how do you bring in future talent in your organization. And especially when that market is a little bit less tight now, this might be the moment to bring in the talent that shapes your company for the future. Then we're going to go to the Q&A. Let me look at that. Is it possible that managers' well-being declined also because of the fear of being replaced by AI? Yes, so that's an interesting one. That was also in that BCG study. The couple of findings that they I didn't mention yet, but I think are interesting. So one is those managers are more worried about being replaced by AI, and from other research, that's also probably the case, that there is expectation that middle management will see an impact of the introduction of AI. But also that the more people use AI, the more they believe that it potentially replaces their AI. So these are the people that are experienced in it. So yes, that can also have an impact on it. I think it's also the less opportunities that people have internally has an effect on it. If you generally look at the market, we see that promotions have declined a little bit. All of those things have an impact on the engagement of employees, of course. And is there a big difference between middle manager and senior manager? Yeah, there's about, I don't know the number exactly, but it was something like 78 for managers and also 87% for leaders in the company. So the further you go up in a company, the more likely it is that they use AI on a regular basis. Do you think meta AI investment could be the same like the whole metaverse, and will it be a flop? Oh, that's a good, interesting question. I think this is probably less likely to be a flop than the metaverse. There is tangible evidence that AI can do a lot of things, and it is the revolution of our time and the next industrial revolution. So I do think there is an opportunity to win that. Not winning that will come with its prize. And also, I think what is actually a good sign is that if you invest that much money in hardware and the technical side, that you at least match that in your talent as well. So yes, I think it is a smart thing to move to invest in their talent. Is investing talent by just offering them a lot of money, is that the right strategy? That remains to be seen. I don't dare to do any predictions on that. Next one. The first slide showed us US, UK, and NL, but any data on how APAC market is trending, including India? Yeah, so India is also relatively stable. India remains a very important market for most companies moving their services to. We definitely see trends that is become more and more higher value work that moves there. What is also interesting is that the adoption of AI in India is much higher than the rest of the world. Um, but in general, India is a good market. We see salaries going up a little bit faster than the rest of the world in India. But also the amount of talent that still comes to market is still really, really high. So yeah, in generally, India is performing well. The rest of APAC, Australia is not doing too badly. Japan, like I said, is doing well. Those are the most buoyant markets at the moment. Next question. Do you see companies viewing registered apprenticeships or for non-trade careers more favorable now than they have in the past? Yes, I definitely think there's more interest in apprenticeships. I think apprenticeships are a great way to bring in talent. We have seen a lot of like enterprise clients more interested in early careers and also apprenticeships. I think as a company, it is a really good way. We see that especially some tech companies are very good in offering apprenticeships and then also converting those apprenticeships to real perm hires. So yes, absolutely a great strategy to bring in talent, and by smart companies definitely used. I think we have one more question. What does it mean for recruiting talent in INGOs working in the developing world with young, vibrant populations of 35 and under? Your example does not have the developing world. No, that's true. I mostly focus on developed economies and their labor markets. The dynamic in developing countries is indeed slightly different. I think adoption of AI could be a huge enabler for developing countries. You do see that countries like Ghana start to become on the radar of larger enterprises to also move shared service centers in that direction. So really connecting developing countries to the global labor markets could be a great source for FDI and that kind of areas. In general, if you look at a country like Kenya, for example, unemployment is relatively low. There are tech companies also looking into are these the future of our talent hubs? It's still nascent, but hopefully that will happen over the next few years, and I hope that AI can play a very good role in that. So I think that is it. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or if you have any topics that we should address on the next session, also keen to hear that. And I hope you enjoyed that, and hope to see you on the next version. Thank you very much.